manager here at ServiceNow, looking after our solution consulting team covering IT transformation. That covers not only the IT operations management solution within ServiceNow, but also the full sort of life cycle from business management and planning all the way through our asset management and security and operations and DevOps solutions as well. I've been with ServiceNow for a couple of years, but over 30 years in the industry with organizations as diverse as Oracle and a couple of small startups, and been in the systems management and operations management space probably for about 25 years. Let me ask Phil to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone. So just waiting for the hub to come off of mute there. I'm Phil Taphouse. I really need to update that profile picture. That's before I started the company. Obviously looking a lot more fresh-faced and less haggard. So yeah, Phil Taphouse, I'm the founder and CEO of ITOM Solutions, and we're a dedicated ServiceNow ITOM partner. Lots of work in this space, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you some of the bits and pieces that we've done with our client base.
Thanks, Phil. So let me kick off and have a little bit of a discussion for the next 10-15 minutes around what we see in the market and put some context around today's session. So first of all, I think with a lot of the organisations we talk to who've been going through projects around IT operations management, sometimes as they go through that process and they get involved, they get a bit lost around where they actually came from and what were the original drivers to delivering those solutions and what were the motivations behind it. Maybe because the people involved change, maybe because priorities change and different elements happen, and sometimes that's part of the challenge of the way that they operate. So let's have a think a little bit about what those are. I've got some examples here that we hear from. And it would be useful as we look through those to have a think about, what brings you here today. What was some of the drivers that you were looking at? Were they common within this space? It'd be interesting to see, if you've got any thoughts around that. So if you can maybe put in the chat whether you agree with these particular ones that resonate with you, but also with regards to whether there's something in here that the drivers that brought you to implement the solution that aren't in here. That would be interesting to see as well. I'll pick out a few that we commonly see and I think that are really the key ones here, and it will come towards the end about the maturity of where people are. But certainly within the context of this, it's all about whether it's driving about the health of business services and understanding what impact issues are having on the services that IT are there to support. With a lot of clients that we talk to, it's very much driven around the fact that they're managing technology, but they don't have an oversight of what the dependencies of that technology are on the business services. That can be a key driver. Another key one that we see more commonly now is organizations transforming and moving to the cloud. Process and the visibility and that process and gain value from it. That's another key one that we're seeing from that. And the pressure from the business to get IT to be able to communicate to them in terms that they understand and having that understanding within there. These are some of the major challenges. We have a quick look at the chat and have a look and see what whether we got any input in there. So let me move on with this one and talk a little bit about some of the drivers that we see that organisations are looking to achieve. And I think this is the key thing, that if you get lost in terms of what was motivating in the first place to start the process, the key thing really is to focus on where do you want to get to. And I think this is all about the value that you're going to achieve and where you want to get to within that context. These are just some examples of outcomes that not only we've had customers who are looking to achieve, but also thinking about the KPIs that you're looking to measure achievement of those outcomes. And this is a real big focus for us, that in order to stay online and stay on course in terms of where you want to get to, what are the motivating factors? What are the KPIs you really want to achieve? If you are having issues with a large number of outages, okay, where can you make an improvement on that? How can you measure the improvement you're making? And remembering that, you know, a lot of the challenges around this are not just around the technology, but around the people and the organisation and the way you operate, and how you can change that operating model to adapt and improve some of these metrics. So I think this is the key area here, is about thinking about the outcomes you want to achieve and what you need to put in place as part of the programs in order to achieve those. As you go through that process, have a think about where those areas are. They may be focused around you know, getting much greater control over an understanding of what you're actually managing from an asset point of view in order to manage reduction in costs. It may be something that it's more around innovation, and that you're needing to bring new products to market more quickly within your organisation to remain competitive, and what are the drivers there, and how you're going to measure the improvements you're going to make there. Maybe it's the efficiency of your DevOps pipelines. So all of these metrics and KPIs are really the things that you can use to measure the progress that you're making down that road as part of your program. So what are the barriers, and what do we see with some organisations in terms of the challenges that they see within their organisations and the projects that they're looking to deliver? So these are just some, and I think a number of these we hear on the various workshops and sessions that we run with our clients. I think one of the biggest ones that comes up time and time again is lack of sponsorship. Any kind of program that you're looking to deliver, especially around an IT operations management program, is going to touch large parts of your organization. It's not just an IT challenge, and therefore, in order to get buy-in and involvement and to manage the change process, because at the end of the day, the technology is not the key element here. It's about the organisation, the people, and the way that you operate. You need to get that sponsorship, and that needs to be in there. So a steering committee or some kind of program committee that will drive the changes that you need to make a very clear requirement there, and establishing that. The other one is that I think comes up a lot is about the overarching strategy, about actually having a clarity and a plan that you can keep returning to, and be in a position where you can say, right, okay, are we online? Are we clear about where we're looking to go? Are we adapting that strategy as demand changes? You know, the last 18 months, most organisations, if not all, have probably been pivoting regularly to adapt to the changing situation, and having a plan and a strategy that allows you to have a process for handling that is important. And as we say, the changing of priorities is what drives through that. It may also be around some of the challenges that you have in the way that your organisation is structured and operates. If you've got SIAM partnership models, the technical things you want to be able to achieve may be determined by the setup of those partnerships, the different partners you're working with, who has control of the data. So all of these things are factors that you need to look at in terms of working out the best approach and the best way forward, and where you can make gains. And I think that's another area to think about as well, is not looking to the overall project as a single deliverable, but actually where you can make progress and make gains, get buy-in, show the benefits in those areas to other people in order to get them to buy in, to contribute to the next phases of the project. Complexity of environment, I think this is one that's coming up more and more, is really around the fact that organisations have got pretty much typically a hybrid model. They'll be on-prem, they'll be public and private cloud, they'll be using more and more SaaS tools. Obviously, if they're ServiceNow customers, that's one they've already got. and therefore understanding how you manage that and the requirements for management, which will be different, and the capabilities that you need to rely on both within the context of your own organisation, your partners and your providers. That's a key one there. One that crops up on a regular basis, and I'm sure Phil will talk in great detail about this, is the maturity of the data model, the CMDB, and the challenges around that. And I think that's a critical one. The data foundation to any project, and the 30 years that I spent, even back in the early days when I was at Oracle, these topics would come up time and time again. And as technology's evolved, that challenge hasn't gone away. How do you maintain the accuracy and more importantly, the trust that people have in the data that they're using? If you lose the trust, then pretty much everything else breaks down. So that's a real critical area to look at within that context. And of course, you know, another that everyone faces, which is more and more things to look after, a greater and more broader domain or set of domains that you need to be on top of, increasing complexity and obviously probably fewer resources in order to manage that. So how do you get the efficiencies and the effectiveness in the way you can operate? How can you use the technology to take away some of the mundane work so that you can focus on the work that's actually going to drive you forward and move through that? And finally, but last but not least, any of the challenges that you may find around security, especially as new regulations come in a lot of markets around managing risk and SOX and so on. How can we understand what that impact's going to have, and how can we manage through that process within our organisation in order to achieve success? So what are the benefits if we can address some of these barriers? Well, let's think about the model that Forrester and Gartner and the EMA talk about when they talk about the maturity model within ITOM. So clearly, it's about recognizing that we're going to want to transition from a reactive approach to gain control and start moving through that process to the responsive level. Then to start having the ability to then take that further, to get an intelligent view of the way that we're operating and some of the benefits around that, start being more proactive around our alerting, to get root cause analysis, and to start consolidating data, and then to ideally at the far end get to a point where we can actually start thinking about things in terms of self-healing, using AI ops to predict and prevent outages. And have a continuous feedback loop which allows us to improve the process and the way that we operate. That's the goal, but it's about recognizing where you are on that maturity level and how you can make the next step within that process. If you're down at the reactive level, which is still very common, that organizations will have a relatively small proportion of their processes that they've got under control, managing in an efficient way. They want to be able to move forward so that they can improve that and remove some of the friction. That's just a basic step. That would be typically about building in a foundation where you've got a bit more control and visibility about what you're looking to do. And then as you move through that process, you're automating more of the processes in there. You're getting more efficient in the way you can do that. But you're probably still working in a siloed structure and organisation within the model, without maybe connecting the dots between the different areas of technology, so that you start understanding the way that those different silos are related and supporting the business services. So how can I move to the next level and make things a bit more proactive and understand, okay, I can detect things that are potentially going to cause a problem before they actually impact the users of those services. And then finally, as we're looking to transition through that process, we want to be in a position where we can start really looking across the businesses and automating. And this is really where ServiceNow's platform really comes into its own, to help you to automate that workflow across your organization and to get that continuous improvement as you move into level 4. And then you're in that position where you're starting to predict where you're going to have issues, and also start looking at the as you move and bring in new projects and new capabilities, how you're going to bring those into the environment without causing impact, and also be ready to release new services in a more effective way, utilizing the resources you've got, because you've got that automation in place. So let me just wrap up by saying that, from a ServiceNow perspective, it's not just about the technology platform that we deliver and the capabilities of that technology platform. It's also about working with you as customers in a partnership where we're able to deliver best practice support and all the way through from our customer success center and the programs that we have within there, the training and certification that we have, and obviously today with Phil and ITOM Solution, working with our partner ecosystem to help you to deliver that. Remembering that in a lot of instances, you may be embarking on a journey for the first time within your organization and maybe not have a lot of expertise in the technologies that you're looking to use or going through those programs. ServiceNow and our partners like ITOM Solution have done this for many, many, many customers, and so bringing that expertise to bear in whatever way makes sense within your programs is critical. So this is what we bring to the table in terms of what we can offer to support you on that journey. And I'll hand over now to Phil to take you through the rest of the workshop today.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to show you a few slides, but listen, I don't want this to be death by PowerPoint for everyone on a what day is it? Wednesday, Tuesday morning even. Fantastic. So yeah, like I was saying, I don't want this to be death by PowerPoint for everyone. I don't think anyone enjoys that. So what I'm going to do is just show you a couple of slides, talk through a few key points, then we'll get interactive on the whiteboard, and then I'll round off by showing you our demo instance where we've implemented what I'm going to talk about, and then I'll open up to any questions. So, all going well, done and dusted by 11 o'clock-ish. So yeah, stick with me. Also, I talk a lot, so and I can't see the chat because I'm on the Service Hub. So if someone could monitor chat for me, but also feel free just to shout out if you've got questions or you want me to stop or explain anything a bit more. I've been told I love the sound of my own voice by my wife, so yeah, please interrupt me. All right, so let's get going. Just to kind of cover this off then on actually what ITOM is, and for any of you that have started your ITOM journey or are quite far down, I apologize. Some of this is going to be laying over all ground, but when we get to the meat and potatoes, hopefully you'll pick up some stuff. For those of you who are just starting it, it's just important we cover it off. So these are the kind of core components that are offered from ServiceNow in their ITOM enterprise. Common ones are understood: discovery and event management, service mapping. A lot of people don't know about operational intelligence, obviously cloud management, and then log monitoring, which is obviously the Loom acquisition. And there's other bits and pieces through Swiggle that are coming in, not quite platform ready, but that's what we're talking about when we mean ITOM within ServiceNow. There is another side, the dark side of ITOM, and you can't make full kind of AIOps and ITOM within ServiceNow work without some of these tools, one or more of these tools. I often say if you've got ServiceNow, ITOM Enterprise, and AppDynamics or a Dynatrace and a SolarWinds, if you've basically got the Holy Trinity, you can make anything work. Sprinkle in your Azure, AWS, or Google through clouds and some time series stuff, and you're in La La Land. We can do a lot of stuff with that. There are loads more tools that are out there and so forth. Obviously, I don't want to make a massive list, and we're partners with most of these guys here, which is also a reason why they're on the list. So yeah, we need to have sources which will feed in and enrich the models that we can interpret, and really use that CSDM CMDB modeling and the maturity level we'll put through that, as well as what we lay on top of the core ServiceNow event management stuff. I'm going to talk a lot about our context engine today, which I'll explain a little bit later, but it forms the whole part of the power and really why it's important. Yeah, good. So AIOps and ITOM are a term that's kind of thrown around a lot. They're basically the same thing, right? There's three core pillars, which I'll come on to, but the core components of it, understanding, make sure that we can baseline what normal performance looks like in your organization. And again, ServiceNow is not a toolkit that can do that on its own without the feeds in. And again, something where we can pull rich metric data and start time seriesing that. We can use operational intelligence to look at anomalies. We can get a rich baseline of data of, this server usually behaves this way on the last Friday of a month because it's involved in payroll, or this is normal behavior for this server over the weekend because it's a frontline facing service, or whatever that kind of looks like. We need to understand what normal looks like. Because what we want to get away from is, we monitor a server or we monitor a database to actually end-to-end customer experience monitoring. That's really, if it's done right, in my opinion, what AIOps and ITOM delivers. We cease to care about the individual components and we start to care about the overall transactions and journeys that our customers are taking through our digital application stacks. And I've got some good examples of where we've done that and why it's important a bit later on. Once we've baselined, we need to apply machine learning to it. There's some great algorithms that are available from many different toolkits. But to Tim's point earlier, you have a lot of siloing if you're using AppDynamics over here, or Dynatrace over here, or SolarWinds over here, different platforms around. They silo their data on their specific technologies that are actually monitoring. So what we tend to do is bring all of that information straight in. I'll draw up an example of that. And then we use ServiceNow's applied machine learning engines and stuff that we've written ourselves and stuff that comes out of the box that can take all of those sources and bring them together. And there's a really kind of core functional way why you would do that. And that will become a bit more apparent as I can run through the examples. You can then use that for anomaly detection. So, we talked about that maturity level from being purely reactive, my house is on fire, to really, really proactive. I've seen a spark. What's gonna happen here, and you can't do the third item, without having the first two in place. Hence the reason it follows this kind of logical order. And then root cause analysis, detecting, understanding that actually it was caused by a component in the network, which the server in the database and the application or the IIS instance or whatever it may well be actually run on, understanding that it's that way around, not this way around, if you know what I mean. So you don't waste your time looking over here, you're really looking straight at the problem. And then that predictive insights. Now this can mean different things to different organizations. We've worked with financial organizations around predictive insights to say, okay, based on last year's data, which we can retro feed into the platform, so we can ingest stuff before you were to go live or something like this. We saw this kind of behavior around these specific holiday periods. So understanding the traffic on the platform between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, or on Christmas Eve, for instance, when people like me haven't done their Christmas shopping and go last minute, to actually utilities. And this was something we talked about at a water utility that I worked at. We never actually got there with it, but we've done it with other utilities now, where we're looking at historical weather data, and then we can feed in predicted weather data to look to see if we're going to have potential issues on platforms and so forth. So that stuff then starts to become really intuitive. So you're not only looking at what your systems are doing now and how they've been architected and the normal load, but potentially what could have impacts them in the future. So you can, double check those firewall rules and make sure that you can do failover if required and so forth. Yep. Just to stomp out, another term which is really thrown around is big data. You hear big data, machine learning, AIOps, buzzwords in technology, blah, blah, blah. I truly believe this is where they're used because we need mass amounts of data. And I'm talking, hundreds of thousands of metric points per day that we can ingest into this platform to analyze and to really make sure that we can understand what's going on. So we do utilize big data and we do utilize machine learning, and it's clustering. It's clustering algorithms. It's nothing predictive. We haven't got Jarvis sat behind there, looking at what he thinks is going to happen based on this artificial brain. They're clustering algorithms, which have been designed in a way to understand, digital platforms. So the three kind of core parts. You'll probably pick this up from the toolkits that I mentioned earlier: APM, IPM, and NPM. So application, infrastructure, network performance management or monitoring, whichever way you want to word that. But that's really then about making sure that we're not only, to kind of cover off the points I made just a second ago, we're not only looking at what's happening right now, but we're looking at what's happened in the past, building that time series database. We're looking at the metrics, we're understanding how these things fit together. And then we go end to end, lowest level network points, top level business service, which kind of fits nicely into this bit. I'm going to skip over here. We start with the vision. Yeah, that's kind of, you know, very common, but this is, we're starting to get into the meat and potatoes of stuff now, right? So for those of you that are CMDB nuts, this, you know, won't seem like rocket science. And in fact, there are many different models of this now. This is a base level model that's designed to take quite immature CMDB, CSDM, and specifically ITOM users into that kind of mid-range maturity level. And then there's another phase of that which really pushes you on, which I can draw up, or I'm happy to take offline with anyone else that's interested. But what we really need to start doing is linking applications and technical services to business services within the organization. This is something IT have tried to do for a long time, and this is an example of what we've got here. So, and I've shown the architectural structure in a minute, but in this example we can see the orange highlighted boxes. Just to make it easy, we've got online mobile banking. We split level 2 down into different functions actually here, and there's again different ways of doing this. We've done it for functionality, such as we've done here, or we've done it business process step or operator step for other organizations, because it made sense for them to do it that way. But here you can see we've got mobile banking, login, iPhone, because it's different technology stacks for iPhone and Android. And then we have a technical service of OAuth, right? None of this is rocket science. Everyone could probably wrap their head around that. Then we would start to take it down into, I've gone too far, the application services. These are the things that start to get a bit fuzzy for people. So application services used by APM, yes, of course they are. I'm going to completely ignore that selfishly, not because I don't care about APM, I quite like it, but we're just talking about ITOM. So in this particular instance, unless you're really deep into the CSDM game, where you would use application services and application instances within the CMDB, and maybe parent-child hierarchies of such to give you different, different structures, or maybe in development, production, so on and so forth. But in this instance, we're going to keep it very light and simple, and microservice structures is what I was thinking of just then, sorry. The application service here, we're going to replicate mobile banking online, and then we have the applications, the business applications underneath them, which make those things tick. Yeah, and we form that kind of this hierarchy, but the whole thing is designed so that we can understand right from the bottom what the impact is up the top, and then we can start to understand percentages of degradation. You know, is actually our ability for our iPhone users 100% down, but our login capability is only 50% down, obviously, because we have 1 and we have 2. 100% divided by 2, obviously 50, but our overall mobile banking platform only has 10% degradation, because everything else is available to all existing iPhone users that are logged in, or anyone that's coming in from Android or maybe even tablet. Yeah, so we can actually start to understand weightings, business impact, prioritization, and so forth in real time, defined by the platform. So then you can start to send out these tickets on the right prioritization to internal or SIAM based resources anywhere around the globe, with the right information in at right time, first time. So here's an example of how this fits together. This is quite an important model. And again, look, there are evolutions of this. This is designed at crawl stage. So people that don't have CSDM or very immature CSDM, maybe quite immature in their CMDB and don't have any relevance of ITOM at the moment. And actually some of those that even have a would consider themselves to be quite a mature CMDB model, this will still very nicely work. But we start to tie in contracts, and we start to tie in SLAs, and we bring those into service offerings here. So maybe, you know, your gold, silver, bronze offerings that you have on. And then this would be the parent-child relationships of level 1, 2, and 3 that I showed here. But this is kind of where the meat and potatoes of this model happens. So our technical service in our model before was OAuth. That could be vCenter, could be AWS and Azure. They all have their own CIs that kind of hang off it as and where required. We actually hang this off the lowest level of business service. And if you can imagine, where we've got multiple levels of business service across this model here, you might have shared models and you might have additional models and so forth. But what that really gives you is an understanding of, is my service impacted by something that's going on in the application stack, something that I can control? Is it by an underpinning technical service? Maybe that's a third-party service. And we're using something like Thousand Eyes to monitor how that service is working. This could even be Microsoft Office, and we're bringing, or 365, sorry, and we're bringing ingesting events or status alerts about the service globally into ServiceNow. We've done that for a number of customers. Azure, you know, how is the Azure stack globally performing according to Microsoft? what services are going to be impacted based on that, because we understand, this one's in a high-O data center and that's got an outage at the moment. Has it failed over? Is it designed that way? All of these things can be ingested, interpreted within this model, and then obviously it can get more and more complex as you evolve your maturity. But for me, this is the most important piece, this tri-way relationship between your lowest level business service, your application service, and then your business applications. Because it's by doing this, we link the business service world together, like what your CSDMs and your business people and your managing director and your customers, what they care about, and what IT cares about, and your entire IT infrastructure and management team, because they care about this, they care about, are my business applications up and running? Whereas the business cares about this, are my customers happy, and variances of this and so forth. By forming this tri-relationship and taking this application service layer in two, we get really nice updated BSM maps in the CMDB, so we can see the application services. We can build really detailed service maps, which hang off the back of these things here, which I'll show you a bit more of a little bit later. And we link all of that to the underlying service. So if anything happens over here through our event management monitoring toolkit, we have that relationship here, and we know how that's going to impact business service up. I apologize for choosing red. That's a little bit garish. My screen's massive here, so it's kind of giving me cross-eyed. And hopefully everyone kind of understands the relevance of that and why it's important. That was my flux capacitor moment when I was kind of designing this this model for use. And it's proved itself very, very flexible and very, very important in preventing digital platform outages. We've prevented large-scale financial institutions, banking platforms from going down over busy periods, which has been pretty cool to see. Any questions just on any of that? Because again, I'm talking a lot and quite fast. So any questions? Anything in the chat from anyone? No?
I suppose the question from me is that on face value looks complicated. And if you're a managed service provider, as we are, this could get incredibly complicated. I suppose, and I'm not looking for an answer on this call, but is there an easy way to work through this and design this and look at all sort of outcomes? Is there a standardized approach that you could adopt to sort of build this type of layered ITOM model?
Absolutely. And I'm going to be honest, this is a shameless plug. This is what we do as our meat and potatoes. I've got to stop saying that. I've said about 20 times now. This is what we do as standard for a lot of our customers. We have a defined methodology. I know that there is obviously a very well-founded CSDM methodology that can be followed to populate and bring these elements into the CMDB and then manage them going forward. Yes, there is absolutely a methodology you can follow, and you don't have to start 3 layers deep. You can start 1 layer deep, and then we've done that with clients where we started right at the beginning, just top level business services. We provide email, we provide this, we provide that, and then really start to break it down into secure, non-secure, and so forth. So it can evolve over time. By month 24, these guys are humming and know, if there's the slightest little issue in a data center, exactly what it impacts. So don't let the data wave scare you, because that can be calmed right down.
Right. Okay.
I think one other thing that I would add to that is recognizing that it's about going through that process that Phil's just talked about in a way that says, right, okay, how can we deliver some value initially? In other words, don't try and over-engineer things and say, right, we've got to break things down into the minutest detail. You can actually get some very basic benefits by just grouping things together and just saying, right, okay, these things are related to this service. And that business service content, especially as an MSP, where you're looking to say, right, how can I take this value to my customer base? You're going to have customers that you already have, or ones that you're bringing on board, who are going to be at a very wide variety of different levels of maturity, and the data you're going to get from them that you're going to be able to plug into will vary massively. But what you can start with is this process of just saying to them, okay, what are the things that you really care about as a business from your services? And what do you know about what things you have in your technology environment at the moment that are potentially impacting that? And what you do then is you end up with the bits that they know, and more importantly, you end up with the grey areas. And then that's where the value of doing this kind of thing is. And I think simplicity. In all the years I've worked with this kind of technology in a variety of different companies, it's getting the basics and the simplicity that will really help you.
Yeah, and sorry, carry on.
No, please.
Well, I was going to say, and being an MSP, that extra layer of complexity, bringing the customer factor in, because going back to your, I think it was your previous slide, Tim, where, yes, that one, where you looked at the percentages going up the stack. Now, you're absolutely right. At a whole environment, a whole system level, that 10% might not be, as a, that implies a relatively low impacting event. But to the customer that's affected by that 10%, it's 100% of an issue if they can't do what they need to do, and that, I suppose, is
completely agree. In fact, we had that
of challenge.
We had that exact conundrum with another one of our, not a managed service supplier, but they provide a lot of cloud-based platforms, and they do a lot of hosting. Yeah. So I guess they kind of are a managed service, but that's where we tie it all back to this stuff. We understand exactly what they've got, and there's tagging we can do. If it's cloud, we can do it automatically. If it's not cloud and it's in your data center, if it's vCenter, we can do it automatically, but there may be some manual stuff. Tagging specific things back to specific contracts, understanding what they look like, you can then update rules engines to look for those tags. So is this customer A that has everything that we offer, therefore that in that example, 10% degradation is about right. So you interpret it that way. Is a customer B, Philco, that's quite small and 100% of their business is on this single offering that we have, this cloud platform? If so, well, we understand that this CI or this part of it belongs to that customer or is shared by that customer. There, the impact to that customer will be 100% based on what's in their contract. And you can automate that by updating, adding, configured attribute fields to those contracts or to that customer record that then the context engines, which I'll cover on later, can go and look at and pull in and automatically interpret. So I get what you're saying, and it's a conundrum we've had to overcome before. But that's where, again, this slow maturity journey would need to come on.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Key takeaways, again, I think I've spoken this to death: understanding the impact, automatically correcting, mapping service outages, blah, 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 blah. Right, everyone gets that. Cool. This is, wow, sorry, there's a lot of white in this screen, but this is an example of where we've mapped something slightly more complicated. So you can see we've got digital, and then we understand this is mobile banking. This is obviously an FS customer of ours. Looking at mobile banking here, and then we can actually see that this is underpinned by vCenter and OpenAM. And then I've obviously blanked out these bits down here because that was customer specific, but we've got the application services. We've got that business application. There's the application service linked back here. And then we've got our CIs, all of our stuff that's going to make this happen. And here we've got some microservices into SOA layers, etc., etc. So just a different way of looking at that, but that's a real world example. And here you can see we split this up by different functions actually on that capability and offering. That can be done in many different ways. And this is truly then, this model takes you away from I monitor a server, I monitor a database. This truly takes you into customer experience monitoring, because what we can do is we can add additional pieces into here and we can mature this out. So we can actually start to bring in, if I look at a server, for instance, and you've got App Dynamics or you're hosted in the cloud, you've got Dynatrace, we can start to bring in your business transactions. We can understand every single point where these business transactions sit, what they're being interpreted by, especially if you're running some kind of microservice, Kubernetes, clusters and so forth. That stuff's brilliant. We can automate the hell out of that and really understand in real time what's going on with it. But even if you've got some more traditional stuff and you've got decent application monitoring, that APM layer that I spoke about, we can understand the normalness of business transactions and the normalness of server infrastructure. So if anything happens over here that starts to impact this business transaction, ergo your customer's ability to do something in your digital platform. Now they may still be able to log in, but login times are taking twice as long, 3 times as long as they were, because we've got a database lock on a database which is held on this server. We'll know about that, but then we'll have to relate it back to here, which will relate it back to here, which then, as you can see, will drive it all the way up this stack here. Now, I've been in war rooms pre-implementing this kind of solution with customers, and that's taken days, if not sometimes weeks, to figure out what's going on. Maybe the issue rectifies itself. There was a case last weekend that will be in the news that you will hear about with a client of ours, which is now taking more services to cover off different parts of their thing after experiencing what they did. And exactly this happened. It prevented people from making payments. I mean, they could be in the grocery store right now and wouldn't be able to use their card because something like this happened. And we can tie all of this stuff together. And then when you get into La La Land, we can start automating it and doing automated fixes and reducing MTTR and all that goodness. But that's the core difference we're talking about. End-to-end stack, business transaction, customer experience monitoring. That's the future. Right, so what I'll do, because a lot of this is very, how do I stop? I've got to figure out, there we go. Because a lot of this, yeah, I'll discard this. Obviously, I get asked a lot, how do we do this and how do you step through it and so forth, right? So what I'm going to do is just jump over to the whiteboard. Hopefully everyone can see that. Someone give me a nod if they can see me drawing. Very good, thank you very much. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a very simple example of how this actually strings together. And I don't mind if it's, I don't know what's doing that. If it's applicable, I'll share this afterwards or what have you. But let's say that we're going to take 3 different sources right now. So we'll take AppD, we'll take, I don't know, SolarWinds, and let's just say we'll take, I don't know, OEM, yeah, for database monitoring. All really great tools, but as Tim alluded to earlier, these are all silos. So that will be used by your app team, that will be used by your network team, and then that will be used by your database team. In most organizations, everyone seems to hate the network guys, so no one talks to them. Therefore, in a major incident, no one's talking to the network layer and finding out what's going on. Usually everyone hates them because they say, nah, I don't know what's going on, but I'm joking. I've got a lot of friends who work in networks. So what we want to do is bring all of this stuff in together. So if we take it over on this side, ServiceNow, when you put ITOM in, gives you this thing called the EM_event queue, which is basically an open streaming API that we can point all of these different toolkits to and lift and shift and bring, and I'm going to write this in red because it's really important, raw event data and raw metric data. So this will be event plus metric data from all of these platforms straight into ServiceNow, and we process them all within this queue. Now this is really important because none of these things here, yes, okay, they've got a list of your components out there in the network and so forth. They don't have a CMDB. They don't have a service-based CMDB, so they have no comprehension how these things fit together. Even advanced APM toolkits such as AppD, who are fantastic at transactional monitoring and so forth, they don't know how you fit together in services. All they know is the nuts and bolts of that application. They have no idea what the impact to your customers may be if that application starts to degrade. They just know the application is degrading, right? Interesting use case, actually, we've taken in a different customer, Adobe Analytics in as part of kind of this stack. And the reason we did that is because one of their critical steps to understanding impact was to say, okay, AppD is telling us there's an issue. Let's go and manually look in Adobe Analytics and try and work out how many customers on this digital platform are having this issue right now. So we can actually just integrate that as a source, and ServiceNow will tell us. And then that plays as a weighting into the prioritization of the incident and so forth that's brought forward and whatnot. That's what makes this so powerful, because we link straight from here against every ingested event that comes in straight into the CMDB. And if we're talking about the CMDB in the terms that I've just been talking about before, that is a service-centric CSDM aligned CMDB structure where we can understand from lowest bolts to top level business service and everything in between how everything is impacted and how everything strings together. That is hugely powerful because then you can automate and tie everything together. Now, how many times has anyone seen absolute incident floods? You guys have probably got some of these things. AppD is a great example. App Dynamics, fantastic toolkit, and there's an integration. You can go on the ServiceNow store free of charge where you can take an App Dynamic event and create an incident ticket out of it. If you haven't done it, go and do it in dev, because over the weekend you'll have thousands of events that will come through and they'll generate thousands of alerts, incidents within the platform. Same with SolarWinds, same with OEM. All of these platforms do the same because they don't talk to each other because they don't have concept. Whereas what we can do, because we understand down in the CMDB, we can take multiples. We've had 10,000 events grouped together automatically by ServiceNow because we understand they're part of the same service. And then that transposes into alert, and then that transposes into incident. And we don't have time. I could spend 3 hours going through everything that we do around here and everything, the way that works and so forth. We've got smart queuing, conceptual waiting, our incidents already open for it, have they been reported by users already, how we interpret all of that. That's a whole half-day workshop just in its own. And I'm more than happy to pick up with anyone that's interested at a future date about it. But let's just think about that singular use case here where we've got all of these events, and let's call that 100. Yeah, we don't want 100 incidents. Now, what we do want is 100 alerts. Yeah, we want 100 alerts, but we want them grouped. We want them grouped into a parent and 99 children alerts. And the reason that's important is we need the rich information that's coming from all of these things, because these could be different items. That could be a database, that could be a different database, that could be a transaction, that could be a server, that could be a piece of network. We want to understand all of that stuff and relate these things. And then we want to create the required incidents. Are we seeing, are these things here actually about the same database? We don't need to create 3 incidents for that. We need 3 alerts because we want the information, but we create 1 incident over there for that and assign it to the database team. Are these things here about the same business transaction? Well, we create another incident about that. And are these things here, I'll use my rainbow pen, are these things here about the same business transaction? Or the same server? We want to create 1 incident for that. And then we want to create a parent incident, which relates to these children. And then this is assigned to the database team. This is assigned to the network team. And then this is assigned to the server team. Yep. And we're grouped together so we understand what's going on. In-source, outsource doesn't matter because, again, talking about SIAM levels, I know a couple of you that I do know will have a laugh about this one, but how many times has it gone to IBM and IBM say it's not our fault, it's Accenture's problem, or Accenture come back and say it's not our fault, it's Wiplow's problem? I'm not, just to clarify, I'm not saying they're the only guys that do it. It happens everywhere. I don't want to be sued for defamation, right? But that's the story that happens. Well, how about now? We know the things that are going wrong, and there are battles to get them onto this platform. I've been through it in a number of different financial institutions and utilities. They do buckle in the end. It is a bit of a journey, I'll be honest with you. We now know the thing that's going on. We know that it's this particular thing which you look after. Here's the incident ticket. Here's all of the information. Go fix. And by the way, it's related to this parent, which is being looked after by our major incident team or our incident team internally, who are monitoring what you're doing. So you cannot just close it. You cannot try and shirk responsibility because we have all of the data. And all of this is made possible because of what we hold down here within that service hierarchy within the CMDB. Yeah? Make sense? Awesome. I'm just going to jump back to the slide deck. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, I think I've got where am I? I've got a couple more slides. Yeah, I've literally got 3 slides. And then I'm going to jump onto my laptop. So it'll be a couple of seconds. I'm going to show you it working in real time. But we'll see the context engines. I'll explain a little bit more about them, what they're actually doing and why they're important. And it's actually really underwhelming as a demo because it just works, which is what you want in production, right? Okay, good. So we talked a little bit about evolution earlier, and I think this is a really good example of how we can evolve. And a lot of people, and there's no shame in it, a lot of people spend all of their life down in this data section, right? Data 103. You have a siloed toolkit saying that's the value of this thing right now, and great, what the cheese does that mean? And that's where taking that data and being able to understand it and interpret it via the deep linking, deep-seeded, regex endings within ServiceNow, via our context engine can read the whole event and do lookups to knowledge base and so forth. We understand it's 103 degrees, so it's a temperature, right? That's great, but we're still not too much further forward than where we were when it was just being 103. We just know that it's blooming hot and we shouldn't touch it or we get burned. But then what do you do with that? Well, you've got a fever. That's where knowledge starts to come in, understanding, and that's really where the baseline of your entire environment, historical baseline as well, that I spoke about earlier. This all starts to tie together. Okay, this thing is behaving in this way. That's the data point 103. It's 103 degrees. That's symptomatic of a fever, which is not normal bounds of behavior. And this can all happen automatically within the system. But then more than that, you have a fever. What do we do with it? It's too important to ignore. Yeah, and then we move into wisdom. Here's your prescription. So that could be, here's an automation, here's an action we suggest, here's a knowledge article, here's the last 3 incidents that match that criteria, here's a bunch of other event information we can surface to you that we've seen before, here's the impact of this thing going down, this is what it means to our customers, to our business, to our reputational damage, and so on and so forth, right? You can really see how this would start to really nicely impact and change the way an organization works. But all of those things that I spoke about before need to be in place or start to be put in place so you can really start to walk your way up this staircase of maturity within ITOM. When you get to that knowledge layer, you fundamentally change the way your organization works. When you get to intelligence, that for me is the third step that Tim showed earlier on his kind of maturity thing. And then the final step, the fourth step, that's wisdom. That's I think even more than 70%. I think that's 80 to 85% automation within the environment. Of us deciding in the platform what we do with it and how we do it. And we've got there with customers. This isn't just, I'm not blowing smoke here. This is wholly achievable. And actually in less time than you think. We've got fully committed programs out there that have run from really immature beginnings, not to be disrespectful, I think they'd agree. And then within 8 months, we've moved into information. And then by month 13, 14, we're in intelligence. We can get you there quick, but there has to be a program, there has to be sponsorship, people have to want to do it. Otherwise, just making the right sounds and then not wanting to do it, it'll fail. And, no one wants that. Cool, right, so hands on, let's show it to you so you can see it firsthand. So I'm just gonna mute myself and hide my camera while I log into my laptop here. So.
Okay, cool. So you should be able to see my screen, hopefully. Can you see ServiceNow?
We can.
Good, excellent. Right, so what I'm going to start by showing you is just the operator workspace. Now, this is where we've created these service functions. These are the application services. You will start to see these light up. We've got lots of different demos and stuff running for different things, all the way from our cloud orchestration, automatic build, and so forth. But I'm going to show you some specific items. So, we've got our mobile banking ones. We can look at the details, or we can see the service map. And then the service maps are the things that sit behind them from the operational side of you. So you feed at an entry point, and then you can understand in real time from all of those different sources what's happening at any one time within this service, the degraded impacts and so forth that we spoke about, and then you can start to take the actual action. Demo 1 is running a little bit slow on me this morning, I do apologize, but here we can see we've got a 2 entry point cluster. Let me just make this a little bit bigger if I can collapse that aside. Oh, I can't. We've got a 2 entry point application, a bunch of bits behind it. We've got some VPN connectors, we've got some business services, these update handlers and so forth. We have this instance connected to Azure at Dynamics, Dynatrace, Datadog actually, I think it's in here, SolarWinds and a bunch of other stuff. So we've got real-time events that are starting to come through. There we go, you can just see it's, so we've got some Kubernetes stuff which is designed to fail every so often, let's put it that way, so you can see the impact of these things that are moved through. So just for fullness and completeness, to be completely honest with you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Postman to fire in an event about a specific item, specific CI. So this is the EM_event queue that I spoke about earlier. You can see this is actually our custom built Dynatrace. We actually developed this with Dynatrace, this integration, to bring the hub metrics through a lot better against different CIs and so forth. So we're doing full SAT monitoring in here, which just shows the flexibility and the power of ServiceNow as a platform to allow us to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fire this one here. I'm going to kill a server. So I send this in. I just wait for that to confirm. Oh, brilliant! I got an error. That's awesome. That is. Let me just have a quick look here. Okay. Great. Live demos. Bear with me 1 second. I just probably got to reset my password. Slight technical snafu. So I'll just share my screen again. we're away. Good. So I was actually looking at the wrong script, so it's my stupid fault. So I'm going to send these three in here. So we're going to simulate 3 issues that we're going to see from different areas within the stack, and this is going to be across our mobile banking. You can see all we're doing is just inserting a record, and I'll show you exactly what that does. I don't want anyone to think there's any sleight of hand, there's nothing up my sleeves and so forth, right? So if I go into the event queue, all events, oh, that's the wrong queue. There we go, all events, that's the one I meant. What we can see here is we've got the 3 events that I just put in, and we've got against specific nodes, which is the language that Dynatrace is using. And you can see already we've got alerts that have been created against these specific items. What I'll do is I'll just open the event so you can see exactly what's inside it. We've got some host information. We can see we've got our binding rules that have run. These are against our context engines, and we can see we've got the node name or the CI name here, and the metric name, which is fed through from our spoof events into ServiceNow from Dynatrace. Very cool. If I have a look now, we can see that mobile banking here has gone red within our platform. Saying we've got 3 primary alerts. So I spoke earlier about you would want to have separate alerts, and in this case we definitely do, because they're 3 separate servers. It's not the same server. There's 3 separate things which have gone wrong. And then if I come into this map and we can refresh, we can see that we have the 3 items. In this case, it was the server stack, so you wouldn't expect to see these lower items be highlighted. And then the overall status of this particular node based in York has been highlighted too. Nice visual cues. And this is a very, very, very simplistic version of what we're actually able to do. But let's follow it through. So let's look at the map details. Let's actually have a look at the alert. So I will open the alerts queue, because something quite interesting will have happened here. So if I open all alerts, what we can see, if I look at the alerts for mobile banking, here they are, the 3 of them here, and I'll just go ahead and open one of those alerts up. Well, as I start to go through and kind of explain through, we'll start to see some interesting stuff that will happen. So the platform is running its context engines in the background. And we can see already we've had an incident task which has been created. And if we have a look at that, we'll be able to see the priority and everything that's being kind of recorded against it. You know, against the CI item and so forth, that it's been created. We've got an overall event count. But actually, if we look here, we've now got a parent alert, which has been put in against this specific alert. Remember, I spoke about that earlier. The reason we want to bring that thing together is actually, if we look at this parent alert, we can see it contains all 3 alerts that I just created. Now, it wouldn't have mattered which source they came from. The point is that the platform understood that all of these things were related because of the CSDM service-centric structure we have in the CMDB. All of these things are related to the same item. And in fact, what we can now see is that we've got secondary, which has appeared against them. So if I go back into our alerts queue, and I will have a look, I might just have to do a little refresh of my view. In fact, yes, there they are, they're there. So I'm just going to reload this page. What we'll see is that the system has automatically brought those things together and is now showing them as a collective parent-child relationship. So where am I looking? Here it is. So this is the parent alert. We have an automated group which our context engine has run against, and it knows that the 3 events that came below it, here they go, the 3 alerts which have been generated, linked to those 3 alerts, events, are all related. The platform has done this automatically using our logic, using the CSDM structure I showed you earlier, and it's simplified everyone's life. So we go into have a look here, and let's open this in Workspace, because it gives it a really nice view of the world. And actually, a lot of our NOCs and a lot of our command centers are using Workspace exclusively now. They don't use the back end anymore, because I think this pulls in a lot of information in a singular place. And I like the tabbed view. You don't have to have multiple browser tabs open. It actually opens tabs within Workspace. I don't know why our demo instance is running a little slow. There we go. So we can start to see we've got all of the alerts which are in that same group. We can go and look at any of them. We've got the alert execution. This is our context engine rule that have run. we understand that this is the service which is impacted, and then we've got all of the information. And as you start to move through that maturity, you'll see probable root causes which will come through. We can do some automations here, such as launching the event management dashboard straight off the back. We can assign it to ourselves. We can create incidents. We can create CMDB visualizations to show how it relates to service and so forth. And then in other customers where we've understood this is a vCenter app, or it's a maybe it's a PaaS or a SaaS offering, or it's a service in the cloud, or it's a Kubernetes cluster, or it's a database service that needs to be restarted, we can automatically pop the actions up here. And as you start to get more uncomfortable with those actions, then you can actually start to automate them, when that's where you move through that wisdom journey. And then let's have a look at the incident that's been created. Again, all of this created automatically. Well, this has actually been proposed, and we have 3 children incidents, which is exactly what you want, all for each of the individual servers, which have been assigned to the correct infrastructure teams. And again, relates back to the impacted services. Here's all of the related alerts. You're actually going to see that it's pulled in other alerts in the same cluster, which are not the ones that we fired in, saying that these are potentially related. We've seen this same behavior before. Have a look at those, all automatically brought in by the context engines and the job that they're doing. And there's just our SLA. But more importantly, and this is where I am going to go into the old view of the incident, just because we're not quite there with this view, the major incident view, I don't think, in Operator Workspace yet. So let me just open the incident. And typically incident management still works from this item. What we'll see, and you can see it there, this is actually assigned to major incident. Don't even click on that. This is actually assigned to the major incident management team. The system, understanding that this is a critical service within the platform, understanding we've got multiple items within this critical service, has automatically proposed a major incident and assigned this to the major incident team. So they can go ahead and actually have a look at, again, the workbench for major incidents and decide whether they accept this or whether they reject this as a major incident, which is huge. This has happened completely automatically. A human being has not had to get involved here to say, we think that this is a major incident because this service is impacting and potentially impacting this many users. The platform's decided it for you. It hasn't created the major incident, but it's sent it to the right place first time with all of the information in situ for your incident manager or your SDM or whoever that is in your organization to make that decision. That's a massive step forward in most organizations that we speak to. All of the information pulled into that single place to allow them to promote it or to reject it. Now, listen, there's a lot of stuff that goes into making this happen. You've heard me mention the context engines a number of times. We simply don't have enough time to cover it in this session. So I've kept it light deliberately. But for anyone that's interested in finding out more specifically what they are, how it works, we're going to be running some follow-up sessions. And I know Judith is going to be a touch point, as will Riyadh and Tim. Be more than happy to go through this in a lot greater detail. But hopefully what I've given you today is an idea of how you go through that maturity, the things you need to consider, and then shown it to you working, so you know that I'm not just blowing smoke, and you can see how this would fit into your organization and how it can reduce MTTR and stabilize your platforms. So I'll shut up for a little bit and I'll ask if there's any questions, and then I'll hand back to Tim and Riyadh.